During the May Day holiday, my younger brother suggested a family road trip to the Ho-Zil uninhabited zone. I said the uninhabited zone was too dangerous, and without a single professional guide among us, we'd be better off going somewhere else. Mom thought I was ruining my brother's excitement. She slapped me across the face and told me to either come along or get lost. In the end, our families still hit the road. That night, we encountered someone trying to flag down our car. I warned Dad not to open the door, but he called me selfish and forced me to open it. Outside was a bear with a human face, and it clamped its jaws around my arm. Instead of helping me, Mom used all her strength to push me out. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my brother suggested we go to the uninhabited zone. Just a reminder, my mom is still telling me to get lost. Perfect. I was waiting for you to say that. #1, wash my clothes, and give them a good press once they're dry. My younger brother walked past me, munching on chips, and gave my basin a kick with his foot. The water from the basin splashed onto the top of my foot, the sudden chill sending a jolt through me. Only then did I truly feel it. I had been reborn. My brother walked into the living room where Mom and Dad were sitting on the sofa watching TV. He plopped down casually and suggested, "Dad, how about we take a road trip to Ho-Zil this Labor Day holiday?" A classmate of mine went during the tomb sweeping festival and said it was absolutely stunning. I already promised Grandma we'd go back to the village to spend the May Day holiday with her. Dad said, looking troubled, "What's so fun about the village? Come on, Dad, let's go. We just got a new car, and we've never been on a family road trip before." My younger brother wheedled. Watching this scene, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. It was just like last time, back then. My brother had pestered Dad to take him to Ho-Zil because his desk mate had gone there over the Qingming holiday and wouldn't stop bragging about it. Just as Dad was hesitating, Mom came out of the bedroom. She had a face mask on, and seeing I still hadn't finished the laundry, she frowned and scolded, "Marina, you've been washing these two pieces of clothing all morning. When are you planning to do the dishes?" Hearing this, I immediately sped up, hung the clothes to dry, and then headed to the kitchen. My mom thinks manual labor is bad for her hands, so she never does housework. My dad hates hassle and is great with technology. That's why we have a dishwasher and a washing machine. But when I'm home, I'm not allowed to use these appliances. By the time I finished washing the dishes, my parents had already agreed to the plan for a self-drive trip to the Ho-Zil no man's land. My younger brother excitedly opened the app to shop. Seeing this, I asked, "Where are we going for May Day?" Mom said, "Ho-Zil, you're getting a real bargain. If it weren't for Ryan, you'd never get to go to a place like this." I offered a well-meaning reminder. I read online that it's best to avoid these uninhabited zones. Even experienced explorers run into trouble sometimes. My younger brother immediately got upset. "Mom, look at her, always raining on our parade." Just as I expected. Just like in my last life, Mom raised her hand and slapped me across the face. "Think you're so special, go if you want, or just get lost if you don't." My face burned with a stinging pain. I covered it and thought for a few seconds. I went straight into a frenzy. With a sweeping gesture, I sent everything on the coffee table crashing to the floor, the glass cups shattering with a loud clatter. "I've had enough. You couldn't pay me to go now." I'd always been the quiet, compliant pushover at home, so this sudden outburst of mine left all three of them stunned. Before they could react, I dashed to my room, grabbed my backpack, and made a run for it. Just as I reached the door, Mom finally snapped out of it, her voice booming, "Marina, if you walk out that door, don't you dare come back." I slammed the door shut without a backward glance, the impact against the frame echoing like thunder. Once outside, I couldn't help but laugh. After a scene like that, I doubt my parents would let me go even if I wanted to. After my rebirth, I sent my whole family to feed the bears too. After my rebirth, I sent my whole family to feed the bears too. #2. Thankfully, our high school required all students to board on campus. Today is Sunday again, the day to return to school. I stayed out until 5 in the afternoon before heading back to school. My younger brother goes to the same school as me. During evening self-study, I went to find him to ask for this week's allowance. When I got to his classroom, my brother was bragging to his classmates about his plans to go to Ho-Zil during the May Day holiday. "My parents have already bought everything. I'll send you guys photos. This time, I'm going to go even farther than Xiaohao." Xiao Hao is my younger brother's desk mate. I heard he just went to Hozil this month. Upon hearing this, Xiao Hao said, you couldn't have gone further than me. My dad said the place we reached was already the boundary. Going any deeper would be dangerous. My brother lifted his head, brimming with arrogance. That's because your dad isn't capable. My dad used to be a soldier. He could kill a wolf with his bare hands. I recalled a time in my past life when we drove to a spot in Hozil. There was a sign someone had put up warning that going further in would be very dangerous. Dad was hesitant and didn't really want to go on, but my little brother wasn't having it. He insisted that his classmate had made it this far, and he had to go even further. So Mom pressured Dad to drive deeper in. Dad drove for a while before he lost the road. We had gone in during the afternoon, and by nightfall, we still had no idea how to get back to the main road. Just then, a person appeared in front of our car and waved at us. My dad, who had been searching for the right path all afternoon, felt a glimmer of hope and stopped the car in front of the man. The man then started knocking on our window. My mom and I were sitting in the back seat. Dad said to me, he must be a local. Marina, open the door for the man. If we give him a ride, he can show us the way out. I remember reading in a book that if you see someone waving in a no man's land, you must never stop, because in such a situation, there are only two possibilities. The first is a real person, in a place with nothing at all. Any person you encounter is either a bandit or a desperate fugitive. The other possibility is that it's a man-faced bear. They are incredibly clever and can mimic human gestures. Someone outside the car kept knocking on the window but wouldn't say a word. I had a feeling the latter was more likely. I told my dad about it and said, let's just drive off. My brother usually contradicts whatever I say, and that time was no exception. My younger brother said, Marina, are you paranoid or something? The world isn't full of bad people. My mother poked my head with her fingernail. So you think you're so clever just because you've read a few books? You think two adults have worse judgment than a kid like you? My father frowned from the front seat. Just open the door when you're told. Stop arguing and open it. Now, I refused. Mom pushed right past me, cursing under her breath as she yanked the door open with her hand. The moment the door opened, a huge, furry head thrust inside. A searing pain shot through my arm as, with one powerful tug, I was effortlessly dragged outside. From up close, I saw it clearly. It was indeed a man-faced bear. Mom, Dad, help me. The bear clamped its jaws around my arm with a crushing force. Pain racked my entire body, making me tremble uncontrollably, yet I thrashed and fought with every ounce of my being. But how could the strength of a mere human ever hope to match that of a bear? Amidst my agonized screams, my mother swiftly slammed the door shut. The bear hurled me straight into the air, and I plummeted down, landing hard on the ground. I felt every bone in my body shatter, my nerves severed, as the bear tore open my stomach. Yet, Mom and Dad just drove away. After my rebirth, I sent my whole family to feed the bears 3. After my rebirth, I sent my whole family to feed the bears 3, #3. The thought made me feel as if the man-faced bear was still tearing at my flesh, my legs trembling slightly. I wasn't freed from that terror until someone tapped me on the shoulder. I looked up to see my brother's scowling face. What do you want? I held out my hand. My allowance for the week, please. My brother and I are only a year apart, but we're famous throughout the whole school. I'm in the top 10 of my grade, while my brother is dead last in his. Every pair of his shoes costs over 1,000, and the clothes under his uniform are all name brands. Me, I wear the same pair of shoes all year round and only have a few outfits to rotate. My parents initially said they'd give each of us 50 yuan a week for living expenses, but at my school, 50 yuan was nowhere near enough to get by. So, I skipped dinner every day. For breakfast, I'd just have an egg and a glass of milk. At lunch, I'd get 2 steamed buns and eat them with some Laoganma chili sauce I'd bought. My younger brother, however, lived much better than I did. He ordered stir-fried dishes from the cafeteria every single day. After seeing this, I went and asked my mom about it. She scolded me, you don't focus on your studies, you just compare yourself to your brother. How could I possibly be giving him money? I asked her. Then how come my brother gets to eat the special stir-fry in the cafeteria every single day? People treat him, of course, Mom said with a sneer. Your brother has lots of friends, unlike you, you don't have a single one. I felt so wronged right then. Was it that I didn't want to make friends? It was that I never had the time, whether it was a regular day off or a holiday. There was always a mountain of chores waiting for me. I don't even have time to do my homework. I only found out later that mom really didn't give my brother extra cash. She just preloaded 5,000 yuan into his meal card, and she'd top it up again whenever it ran out. My brother said, "Mom and Dad didn't give you any." I asked, "Then what am I supposed to eat?" My younger brother scoffed. "How should I know? You're the one who talked back to mom." Serves you right. I knew this would happen. It's always been like this. Whenever I do something that upsets mom, she just cuts off my allowance. Sometimes she even threatens to pull me out of school. Back then, I always held on to a sliver of hope, convinced my mother couldn't be that cruel. So every time, I swallowed my pride and did whatever she asked. And what did I get in the end? She shoved me out of the car without a second thought and drove off without even a glance back. After I died, mom turned and stared out the car window for a long, long time. Then she said to Dad, "Good riddance." Now no one can say our Ryan isn't as good as his sister. That's when I finally understood. My family had no love for me. It didn't matter if I got top grades or was obedient. In mom's heart, there was only room for my brother. Seeing my younger brother's smug expression, I felt a wave of disgust. I pressed him for the money anyway. "They won't give it to me, so you have to." His face instantly fell. "Why should I? If you don't, I'll tell your mom about you chasing after that girl in your class." My brother's pursuit of a girl in his class had become common knowledge. It's just that the girl wasn't blind. She saw right through him and wanted nothing to do with a mama's boy like that. It took a whole lifetime of experience for me to realize my mother wasn't just favoring my brother over me. She genuinely despised women. She didn't just hate me. She loathed any girl who dared get close to my brother. There was this one time when my family found out another girl was pursuing my brother. My mother stormed into the school, confronted the girl, and even slapped her. She pointed right in her face and called her a slut. My brother immediately flared up at that. He grabbed me by the collar and shook his fist in my face. "Marina, who do you think you're talking to like that? Go on, say another word. I'll kill you." I stared back at him, unflinching. "If you're going to kill me anyway, then I've got nothing to lose. Besides, mom calls me every day to check up on you." His expression shifted. Finally, he let go of me and muttered a curse under his breath. He then fished a $50 bill from his pocket and threw it on the ground. I said coldly, "I want 100. My brother cursed under his breath, then pulled out another 50, pointing at my face. He warned, "Don't you dare say another word." Even with 100 yuan, I still didn't dare to spend it recklessly. But life was a little better than before. At least I dared to order a plate of shredded potatoes for lunch. I remember in my previous life, school was in session until next Monday, and the holiday started on the 30th. When my parents found out about it, they specifically took 2 days off in advance. On the afternoon of the 29th, they picked us up from school and we went straight to the car, heading for Tibet. My mother didn't call me all week to ask about her son. I figured there was no way she would take me along, but then, on the afternoon of the 29th, my teacher called me over and said my parents were waiting for me at the gate. I dragged my feet out of the school gate, reluctant and slow. This time, mom was in the passenger seat, and my little brother was in the back. "Marina, what are you dawdling for? Get in the car, quick, the traffic's going to be a nightmare soon." Dad yelled at me. I opened the car door and got in. "I thought you said you weren't taking me," Dad said. "We're a family. We do everything together." Mom sneered from the sidelines. "You think of them as family, but do they think of you as family?" I voiced my reluctance once more. "I don't want to go." Mom was furious, glaring at me with a snarl. "Don't push your luck." I said go. "So you go. One more word and I'll hit you." When mom threatened to hit someone, she meant it. She once broke 3 of my ribs, so every time she bared her teeth, my whole heart would tremble. I didn't dare say another word. While my younger brother snickered beside me, the car quickly left the school behind, growing smaller and smaller in the distance as it approached the highway on-ramp. I thought, and finally, I came up with a plan. "Ow, ow." I clutched my stomach and cried out dramatically, "Ah, my stomach hurts." After my rebirth, I sent my whole family to feed the bears for. After my rebirth, I sent my whole family to feed the bears for. #4. I clutched my stomach. Writhing back and forth in the seat, crying out that the pain was unbearable, left with no other choice, Dad had to find a small, nearby clinic. The moment I saw the clinic, I felt a wave of relief. I just knew they wouldn't be willing to take me to a proper hospital. The small clinic didn't have any diagnostic equipment, so the doctor just prodded and poked around my stomach. Luckily, I read a lot in my spare time and know a little bit about basic medical knowledge. Finally, the doctor put away his stethoscope and told my parents, "It's gastroenteritis, you'll need an 4 drip." My dad asked, "Can you just prescribe some medicine instead? We're supposed to go on a trip." The doctor wrote out the prescription and told him to go pay the bill, stating firmly, "Absolutely not. Look at her, she's in so much pain she can't even walk. How is she supposed to travel with you? She needs an 4 drip." Dad took the slip and went to pay. Mom shot me a fierce glare. With so many people around, she couldn't make a scene or hit me openly, so she pinched the tender skin on my arm instead. "You spoiled little brat, think you're so special, don't you?" My younger brother grew impatient beside us. "Mom, are we going or not?" Mom quickly tried to appease him. We're going. Forget about her, let's just go." Just then, Dad came back with the medicine, pretending to be in great pain. I pleaded with them, "Mom, I want to go." A wicked glint flashed in my brother's eyes. "If she's going, then I'm not." As he stormed out, Mom snapped at me, "You little troublemaker, just stay home by yourself." Thankfully, Dad showed a shred of decency. He left me some money before rushing out after them, clearly worried the mother and son would be upset. I watched their retreating figures, feeling utterly at peace. Dear Mom, Dad, and little brother, this is goodbye. I didn't get the 4 drip. After they left, I returned all the medication. Early the next morning, Mom posted pictures of her arrival in Hozil to the family group chat. All the relatives saw them. Someone in the group chat asked where Mom had been traveling, and she told them the destination. "Aunt, second brother's family really has it good, going on trips to such far-off places. Not like us, born to a life of constant toil," Mom bragged. "Well, what can I say? I have a wonderful husband and a great son." Then Mom proceeded to post a whole bunch of photos. I looked at those photos, but felt nothing inside. Just then, my uncle popped up too. "Uncle, be careful out there in the no man's land. It's far too dangerous." Dad replied, "Copy that. I know it's no use, even if everyone tries to talk sense into them. Dad and the others are just too arrogant. By my count, they won't make it through the night." Just then, Mom sent me a private message. "Clean the house properly, if I come back and find it a mess, you're in for it." I didn't reply to her. "Mom, you can't come back." Sure enough, Mom was posting photos like crazy in the group chat in the morning, but it gradually slowed down. Occasionally, a message would pop up, "The signal here is terrible." By 2 p.m., they had gone dark. I tried calling a few times, but it kept saying they were out of service. I leisurely ordered a bubble tea. I had never had bubble tea before. Mom said girls get fat from drinking that stuff, so she only ever bought it for my brother. It was the same with snacks. She wouldn't let me have any. She claimed it was bad for my health, but really, she was afraid I'd take my brother's share. I went to bed very early and slept straight through until morning. When I woke up, the group chat was blowing up with discussions about my parents going missing. My uncle tagged me, "Marina, have your parents been in touch with you?" I replied, "No, not at all, Aunt, it's been way too long. Something must have happened, we should call the police." After my rebirth, I fed my whole family to the bears. Part 5. After my rebirth, I fed my whole family to the bears. Part 5. ##5. They were just sending text messages, but between the lines, I could actually sense a hint of schadenfreude. That very morning, my uncle went to the police station, and my aunt came to our house to keep me company. She said she was there to keep me company, but she spent the time snooping around our house and, when I wasn't looking, stuffed a bunch of my mom's cosmetics into her bag. 2 days later, my uncle returned and took us to the airport. At the airport, my uncle said to me, "Marina, you're about to turn 18, which means you're practically an adult now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You need to be prepared for what's coming." I pretended to be distraught, letting a couple of tears fall, and spent the flight doing my best to act restless and uneasy. It was as if my uncle and aunt had completely changed their tune. They were being uncharacteristically attentive and caring toward me. Once we arrived at our destination, we met with the local police. The police officer told my mother that my younger brother had been killed. My brother's body, half eaten by a bear, was left by the roadside. My mother wasn't eaten, but her face was badly mauled. My father was in the car a few hundred meters away and wouldn't come out, likely in shock. They asked us to try and talk to him, to see if we could get him to leave the vehicle. The police officer advised me not to look because the state of my mother and younger brother's bodies was too horrific. Only my uncle and aunt were allowed to see them. They came out of the room where the bodies were kept, retching continuously, clearly deeply shaken by what they had seen. Afterwards, the officer led us to where my father was. Passing the spot where my mother and brother had been attacked, I looked out the window. Large, dark stains of blood were still visible there. When we arrived, I saw my father through the car window. His face was ashen, and he was curled up in the driver's seat, his eyes vacant. If not for the faint rise and fall of his chest, he might as well have been a dead man. Second brother. We're here. My aunt first tapped on the window. That tap seemed to jolt him back to life. He flinched violently, then his whole body began to tremble. He instinctively reached to turn the key in the ignition, but the car was out of gas. No matter how much he turned the key, nothing happened. Dad gripped the steering wheel, turning it back and forth. My aunt said to my uncle, "Has your brother lost his mind?" I was the only one who knew what Dad had been through, and why the sound of tapping on glass triggered him so badly. My uncle didn't tap on the glass. He spoke to Dad through the car window. "Eamon, it's us. It's your big brother." The two of them took turns trying to reason with him, but Dad just kept his death grip on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead with a fixed gaze. Throughout it all, my aunt and uncle kept urging me to call out to him too. I called out a couple of times, more for show than anything. "Dad, come out." The three of us shouted until our throats were raw, but Dad still didn't respond. Finally, the police proposed a plan. They would have someone crawl in through the trunk to unlock the door, then a professional would administer a sedative to Dad. They asked if we agreed. Uncle agreed without a moment's hesitation. The plan went off without a hitch. Everyone was very professional, but when they approached Dad, he let out a blood-curdling scream. After the sedative took effect, the ambulance took Dad away. He hadn't had a drop of water or a bite of food for 2 days and nights, compounded by extreme mental stress, leaving him in a severely weakened physical state. Within 2 hours of being admitted to the hospital, my father was rushed to the ICU, and a critical condition notice was issued. My mother and younger brother were cremated on site. My uncle and aunt took the lead in handling their funeral arrangements with great urgency. After everything was settled, the police investigation revealed the true cause of my mother and brother's deaths. Just like in their previous life, a bear knocked on the door, and they opened it. This time, it was the younger brother who opened the door. After the bear dragged him outside, their mother immediately jumped out of the car to fight the bear, but the bear bit her in the neck. Their father had intended to help, but seeing this, he didn't dare get out. He just drove off to save his own life. While at the hospital, my uncle asked if I would be willing to live with him. Before I could answer, my aunt arrived. She saw me, immediately hugged me, and started crying. "Marina, how about I take care of you from now on? I promise I won't favor boys over girls like your mother did." My uncle was not pleased to hear that. He said, "Marina is part of our family. What does this have to do with you? I've already discussed it with Mom. Marina will live with us from now on, and her household registration will be transferred to my name." My aunt rolled her eyes. "Big brother, our second brother isn't even dead yet, and you're already in such a hurry. Let Marina decide for herself who she wants to live with." After she finished speaking, my aunt stroked my hair and said gently, "Marina, you're my favorite. I even bought you toys. Remember, their motives for fighting over me are as plain as day. My family is well off, to my knowledge. My father owns at least 3 properties. Now, with my mother and brother dead and my father's fate unknown, they're not vying to take care of me. They're after the inheritance. They think I'm just a kid who doesn't understand any of this. Little do they know, I've lived this life before." My uncle and aunt were still arguing over my custody when I spoke up. "I won't go with either of you." They were both stunned. My aunt said to me, "Marina, don't be rash. Look at your father's situation. It's uncertain if he'll even get out. Come stay with me." I promise I'll put you through college, I said. Why would I need you to? My parents have plenty of money, more than enough for my education. Marina, my aunt's voice cut sharply as she called my name. No wonder your mother mistreated you. I stared at them, my gaze fixed and unyielding. So they all knew, everyone knew my mother was abusing me. Yet not a single person was willing to help, and yet they still claimed to care about me. After my rebirth, I fed my entire family to the bears. After my rebirth, I fed my whole family to the bears. Part 6, ##6. In the end, neither my uncle nor my aunt won the argument, because Dad woke up, but he was mentally traumatized. After his body had mostly recovered, he was sent to the local psychiatric hospital. I achieved financial independence, my nutrition improved, and I no longer had to do so much housework. In the last 6 months of my 17th year, I grew 2 centimeters taller and rose from 10th to 1st in my class. After the college entrance exams, I was admitted to a very prestigious university. During my freshman year winter break, my father was discharged from the hospital. He could never move past the memory of his mother and brother's death. So the doctors used a therapy to make him forget that part of his life. The doctor told me the memory loss was only temporary. He might remember next month, or it could be decades before it comes back. I was told to be careful and avoid bringing up that day if at all possible. So, we just told Dad that Mom and my brother died in a car accident. After Dad was discharged from the hospital, he wasn't all that different. Maybe because I'm his only family left, our relationship thawed a bit. Things were uneventful until the summer break of my sophomore year. When I returned home, I found an extra person in the house, Sis. Staring at the little chubby kid in front of me, I was stunned. Tian, what are you doing here? The little chubby kid was my uncle's son, and he was 9 years old this year. Dad came out of the bedroom holding some tea leaves. From now on, Tian is your real brother, he said. What do you mean? I asked. Dad sat down on the sofa and started making the tea. Your uncle feels sorry for me. Having no son to look after me in my old age, he's planning to formally adopt Tian to me. I understood my uncle's intention immediately. He still had his eye on Dad's property. I said to my father, you have me, I'll take care of you when you're old. My father looked me up and down with a look of utter disdain. You, just a girl, how are you supposed to take care of me? Besides, all this money of mine must stay with the Rao family. How could I possibly leave it to an outsider? His words felt like a bucket of ice-cold water being dumped over my head, chilling me to the bone. Over a year of peaceful coexistence with my father had almost made me forget, in my father's eyes, I'm just an outsider. I didn't argue with my father. Instead, a plan began to take shape in my mind. Dad beckoned Luca over, sat him on his lap, and offered him some of his finest tea. Then, pointing to his own face, he said, Tian, call me Dad. Every day, she would sweetly call out, Daddy. What a touching picture of paternal love and filial piety. It seems I need to act quickly. If I'm late, I'm afraid what's rightfully mine will belong to someone else in a couple of days. The adoption formalities needed to be completed back in our rural hometown, so I followed my father back to the village. It was already evening by the time we reached the village. Grandma was overjoyed to see Dad. She pulled him into the courtyard and chattered away non-stop, showing no intention of speaking to me the entire time. Feeling a bit carsick, I told Dad and went straight inside. After fumbling around for a while without finding the light, I lay down on the bed to rest my eyes. Suddenly, 2 people started talking in the outer room. Listening carefully, I realized it was Uncle and Aunt. The aunt sobbed. Are we really going to give Tian to second brother? I can't bear it. He's our only son. The uncle scolded her. You can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Second brother is loaded. When he dies, it'll all be Tian's. The aunt reminded him. Second brother still has Marina. He doesn't even work now. And with your mother's longevity, who knows when he'll die or how much will be left by then. The uncle chuckled. Then we just have to make sure second brother dies sooner rather than later. After my rebirth, I fed my whole family to the bears 7. After my rebirth, I fed my whole family to the bears 7. #7. My aunt gasped. That's against the law. As long as we don't call the police, no one will look into it. When the time comes, we'll just say he died of an illness. My aunt asked, what if Marina doesn't leave any inheritance for Tian? she's just a girl, she'll get married sooner or later. How could she possibly outmaneuver Tian Tian? If it comes to it, we'll just kill her too. Hearing all this, I was utterly horrified. Ignorance is truly bliss. Who would have thought my uncle, with his honest appearance, could be so cunning? Just as I was wondering how to handle the situation, my dad walked in from outside. Brother, why are you sitting in the dark? I quickly shut my eyes. I saw my uncle flusteredly explain something to my dad, then ask him where Marina was and why he hadn't seen her. He's sleeping inside the room. My heart leapt into my throat. In less than a minute, the bedroom door was carefully pushed open. Uncle switched the light on directly. I had no choice but to pretend to be woken by the light and greeted him. What's the matter, Uncle? I'm looking for something. Uncle pretended to look for something and asked me if I had heard any noise. I played dumb and said no. Uncle gave me a meaningful look, told me to go back to sleep, and then left. How could I possibly sleep after that? Tossing and turning in bed, I finally remembered someone. It was time to let Auntie cut loose. I waited another 2 hours, making sure everyone in the courtyard had gone back to their rooms. Then I slipped out of my room to go have a chat with Auntie. Just as I stepped out of the house and was passing by the cornfield in front, I heard Uncle and Aunt's voices again. Uncle said, "Tomorrow, have second brother take Tian Tian to get the paperwork done." Aunt asked anxiously, "Do you think she heard us?" Uncle shook his head. "Heard or not, she can't stay. Do you still have that paraquat your brother gave us? Put it in her water glass tomorrow." A shiver ran down my spine at those words, and I quickened my pace. Early the next morning, my uncle urged my father to take Tian Tian to be formally adopted. My aunt made me a cup of orange squash, apologizing that they had no proper drinks and asking me to make do. After she gave it to me, I just held on to it. My aunt kept glancing my way, but I pretended not to notice. Just as the group was heading out, Auntie's voice rang out, "Big brother, I'm here." Auntie came in from outside with her son, and Uncle's face instantly changed. This is where the fun begins. I pulled up a small stool, sat down, and set my water cup aside. Seeing their get-up, the younger aunt was a bit surprised. "What are you all dressed up for?" The eldest uncle, afraid his plan would be spoiled, said, "We're going into the city for some fun." Going for fun, or going for an adoption? I've heard all about it. The younger aunt retorted. She shoved her son toward my father. "Second brother, if you wanted a son, you should have said so sooner. Here, take mine," the eldest uncle said, "but your son doesn't carry the Rao family name." The aunt stood with her hands on her hips, looking fierce. "I'm a Rao, that's what matters. Changing a name is a piece of cake. He doesn't have a drop of the Rao family's blood in him. He has my blood in his veins. That makes him a Rao." It's a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Absolutely brilliant. Just as I was about to burst into applause, my aunt glanced my way again. She suddenly shouted, "Tian Tian, what are you doing?" That's when I noticed my cousin had somehow appeared right beside me. He grabbed that cup of orange soda and started chugging it down. My aunt rushed over, snatched the cup from my cousin's hands, and shrieked, "How could you drink this?" My cousin burst into tears, his whole body trembling. "I want it. I want it, Mom, I want it." My uncle also rushed over and said bluntly, "Get him to the hospital, now." After my rebirth, I fed my whole family to the bears ate. After my rebirth, I fed my whole family to the bears ate. #8. My cousin went to the hospital in the afternoon, and by evening, the police had taken my uncle and aunt away. A few days later, my cousin passed away in the hospital. Grandma chased after me with a stick, screaming, "You worthless girl, why wasn't it you who drank that water? It had to be your brother, you must have known it was poisoned, you wretched, cursed thing." I ran from her as she tried to hit me. The whole time, my father and my aunt just watched, while the other relatives looked on with utter indifference. I had planned to leave that very day, but then I overheard my aunt say to my father, "Since Tian Tian is gone and your older brother is in prison, why don't I have my son take your family name? Second brother, that way you'll have someone to look after you in your old years." I could tell from my dad's expression that he was getting interested again. "Looks like we can't wait any longer." That evening, I went to my dad's room and knocked on his door. "Who is it?" my dad asked. I didn't say a word. I tried to recall the bear's rhythm and kept tapping on Dad's window in the same way. A minute later, Dad opened the window. He saw me and asked, "What are you doing?" I asked him, "Dad, where's Mom and Ryan?" Dad froze. And the look in his eyes changed. I started knocking on the window again, once, twice, 3 times, knock, knock, knock. Dad must have remembered something, his face growing increasingly grim. "Dad," I called out to him, "where's Mom? Where's Ryan? You all went to Hozil. How come you're the only one who came back?" "Stop knocking," he yelled at me, his hands clutching his head. "Where's Mom?" I kept asking. Under my relentless questioning, Dad finally broke down. He remembered, his eyes turned bloodshot. He punched the glass and then jumped out. He grabbed me by the throat and shouted, "It was you, you killed Ryan." The sound of shattering glass woke my grandmother. She ran out, screamed at the sight, and immediately went to get help. My father was incredibly strong. He nearly strangled me to death. Fortunately, some villagers arrived just in time and managed to restrain him. Dad lost his mind. He was screaming and hitting people. Someone in the village called the police. They came, contacted a psychiatric hospital, and after a whole night of chaos, they finally took Dad away. When it was time to sign the papers, the doctor asked, "Where is the family?" My aunt stepped forward and raised her hand. "I am," she said. The doctor asked her, "What's your relation to him?" "The hospital admission fee is 5,000 yuan. Hearing that payment was required, my aunt hesitated. I stepped forward and took the pen, saying, "I'll handle it, doctor, I'm his daughter." I signed the form right away. As we left the hospital, Auntie was still going on about discussing the adoption matter once Dad got better. "Auntie," I cut her off. "Do you know what my signature just now meant?" "What?" I smiled at her. "It means that from now on, I'm the one in charge of Dad, whether he stays in the hospital, gets discharged, or when he leaves. It's all up to me." My aunt froze, instantly grasping the meaning behind my words. In her eyes, I was still just a child. "I'm not that helpless kid you can push around anymore. You saw what happened to Uncle. I suggest you drop those schemes right now and stop buying my father's estate. I'll outlive all of you." My aunt's face turned ashen as she stared at me in disbelief. I turned and hailed a cab by the roadside. My parents have a habit of keeping notes, so I know all their bank cards and passwords, and exactly how much money they have. That money is enough to last me a lifetime. From now on, no one should be able to hold me back anymore. Story 2. In the apocalyptic end times, the floodwaters rose to the sky. Yet I was kicked off the rescue inflatable boat by my mother-in-law. My husband and his pregnant mistress were laughing beside me. When I opened my eyes again, it was 30 days before the torrential rain hit. I also acquired a special ability. 1. Cough, cough. When I suddenly opened my eyes in the darkness, my body involuntarily curled up. I coughed violently, and the smell of rust filled my entire nasal cavity and chest. Where am I? Wasn't I pushed off the boat? Huff, huff. The loud snoring woke up my rationality. It seems that I didn't drown. This place seems to be my home. Sleeping beside me is my stupid pig of a husband, whose sleep quality is so good that he wouldn't even bat an eye if struck by lightning. How could I be in this home that has already been washed away by the flood? I hurriedly searched for my phone. The time on it read 00:30, June 29, 2023, 35 days before my death. 30 days before the torrential rain hit, too. I couldn't fall asleep after waking up. I confirmed that all that horror wasn't a dream, but that I had been reborn. Because I found that I had 2 special abilities. One was an extremely strong memory. I clearly remembered all the things from June 28 to August 3 in my previous life, even the details that I had only glanced at. The second was a personal space of 1 cubic meter. For a moment, I thought I was going to be the protagonist of this world, but soon, I realized that I couldn't do it. I'm just an ordinary person who has lived for more than 20 years. Tell the government the news of the flood apocalypse. Who would believe me? Build a shelter that can accommodate everyone in the world. How could I possibly do that? I can only make full use of my abilities to live until the day when the torrential rain stops and the flood subsides, and within my ability, I will try my best to help others survive. During the intervals of my thinking, there were several moments when I thought about strangling the heartless and adulterous man beside me, but in the end, I didn't do it. If I am to be the spark of humanity, I hope I'm not evil, but I also won't have the slightest bit of pity for this man. I plan to make him experience all the despair of his previous life. and I will witness with my own eyes what kind of fate awaits him after he abandons me. 3. I pretended to wake up at 7 in the morning as usual, and then took the subway to work. Naturally, I wasn't going to work honestly, however. In order to avoid arousing suspicion in that man at home and his mother, I couldn't let the company spread the news of my absence from work back to them. I could only resign and then pretend to have found a better job. In my previous life, the company I worked for also did all kinds of despicable things. After the government issued a red rainstorm warning, requiring enterprises and institutions not to go to work unless necessary and to choose to work from home. That son of a bitch of a boss insisted on forcing everyone to come to the company. Several of my colleagues were thus trapped in the flooded subway station and didn't even survive the third day of the torrential rain. When the floodwaters washed their bodies out of the subway station, they were already pale and swollen, and their faces couldn't be recognized at all. Thinking of this, after I submitted my resignation, I specifically greeted a few colleagues who were closer to me. When the torrential rain arrives, it will depend on them to inform everyone to save those lives, for all the conditions for a good survival are safety and supplies, and both safety and supplies require a lot of money. Obviously, as an ordinary orphan who has no inheritance from my parents and has been working hard for 4 years but is still a bottom-level employee in an ordinary company, I don't have much savings. As for my wealthy husband, who I thought was gentle and considerate in the past but is actually a mama's boy and a slacker, he thought that after giving a large sum of money to my uncle's family, I would be his highly educated personal nanny, so naturally he wouldn't give me much money to spend. There is only one way to get money quickly: the lottery. I spent a whole day running around 80% of the lottery stations in the city and bought thousands of lottery tickets for the draws in the next 2 days. They would all win prizes, but the prizes were not large, ranging from a few hundred to a few thousand yuan, and none of them exceeded 10,000 yuan. Although winning a big prize is more efficient, if I not only buy a large number of first and second prizes, but even just one more first prize, it may lead to a different result for this period's lottery draw, and I can't afford to take that risk. As for small prizes, I also try to control each single ticket to not exceed 10,000 yuan, so that I can claim the prize directly at the lottery station. Otherwise, once I go to the prize claim center with multiple winning lottery tickets of the same period to claim the prizes, it will surely arouse suspicion. 5. After having the money, I began to look for a shelter for myself. This torrential rain and flood covered the whole world, and fleeing from Beijing wouldn't save me from the disaster. Staying in Beijing is not only more convenient for preparation, but also likely to enjoy better rescue conditions. In my previous life, we moved into the penthouse on the top floor that my husband rented for his mistress in the same community as our home. We withstood the first wave of floods. However, we didn't expect that each wave was stronger than the last. The building, which was claimed to be able to withstand a magnitude 7 earthquake, actually rose from the ground and then collapsed. I deeply understand that the steel and iron structures that humans are proud of can't withstand the howling of nature at all, so I need a shelter that is high enough and safe enough. I carefully recalled the memories of those 36 days and finally found a suitable place in the background sound of a broadcast that I hadn't paid attention to at all. Please transfer out of the city in a timely manner. Citizens, currently, the east and southeast directions are passable. Please note that do not choose the northeast direction. The flood in this direction has spread to the foot of Longyan Mountain in the northeast. That's right, Longyan Mountain. I lived in a village at the foot of Longyan Mountain when I was a child. I heard that there is a cave on the top of the mountain. It is said that in the early years, when the older generations encountered floods, they would take shelter there. Strangely enough, the area below the middle of Longyan Mountain is covered with dense trees, but the upper third near the top only has some grass, and the very top is a bare rock layer. Perhaps it is precisely because of the strange geological features of Longyan Mountain that it has withstood the disasters time and time again in the past. Later, when I was a child, many people knew about the cave on Longyan Mountain. At that time, some people from inside and outside the village who went up the mountain to hunt wild game would stay there if they couldn't make it down the mountain in time. But now, the village has been deserted, and hunting wild game has long been prohibited. I guess no one has been to the mountain for many years. 6. After inspecting the situation of the cave on the top of Longyan Mountain, I determined my next plan. The first thing without revealing myself. Try my best to warn the whole society of the disaster. The second thing, build a shelter for myself on the top of Longyan Mountain and strive to hold out until the disaster passes. The third thing, purchase enough survival supplies and learn how to swim and row a boat before the torrential rain arrives. Among these three things, the warning is the simplest and the most difficult. I registered accounts on Weibo, Zhihu, and Douyin respectively, mainly focusing on predicting the future. On Weibo, 1 to 2 days in advance, I pretended to be a comprehensive master of zhou, tarot, and stargazing, and revealed a lot of gossip about celebrities, quickly attracting a large number of fans and passers-by. After attracting enough attention, amidst everyone's eager anticipation, I left a divination result. At the end of July, the hell of the water palace will arrive. For the next 3 days, no matter how everyone asked, I didn't speak again. Early in the morning on the 4th day, I logged in again and posted a new Weibo. Master Emily's divination of the secrets of heaven has been backlashed, and my life is coming to an end. This account will be permanently sealed. On Zhihu, I anonymously left a large number of accurate predictions, which made countless Zhihu users wonder why there were so many accurate anonymous answers recently. Then, on the eve of the official announcement that the anonymous system would be abolished, I manually cancelled the anonymity myself and pinned a new prediction on my homepage. At the beginning of August, Beijing will be flooded by floods, and the ancient capital will no longer exist. When everyone began to wonder whether the accounts that had made accurate predictions before would choose to cancel their anonymity, they suddenly realized that all these predictions actually came from the same person. On Douyin, I set up a live broadcast room pretending to invite the pen fairy. The camera didn't film people, but only the pen I was holding. After the pen fairy wrote out the numbers of the first prize in the current lottery draw 30 seconds in advance for 3 consecutive lottery draws, and even the order of the balls drawn was exactly the same, everyone began to believe that the pen fairy really existed in the world. I pretended to have tasted the benefits and claimed that I was going to do something big. I could connect with others on Douyin and ask the pen fairy about everyone's lifespan for them. Undoubtedly, the dates of death I wrote were all at the beginning of August. After testing 7 people who connected with me one after another, my account was blocked, but the recording of the live broadcast spread like wildfire. Soon, the majority of netizens connected the 3 things: the hell of the water palace at the end of July, the ancient capital being flooded at the beginning of August, the pen fairy testing 7 people in a row and all of them dying in August. Together, the news that the end of the world caused by the flood was coming was almost known to everyone. 7. The latter 2 things sound difficult, but they are also simple. I pretended that my new job required a 10-day business trip, fooled my husband and mother-in-law who didn't care about me in the first place, and then began the days of constantly traveling back and forth between the city and Longyan Mountain. The 2 of them, who had no idea that a great disaster was approaching, were still fully focused on the child that was about to be born in my husband's mistress's belly at this time. They had already paid someone to check, and it was a boy. They couldn't wait to kick me away and not let me get in their way as soon as possible, seeing me as a married wife who hadn't given birth to a child in 4 years. I found a building materials company with a very good reputation and claimed that I wanted to build a vacation homestay at the foot of Longyan Mountain, highlighting the gimmick of environmental protection and renewability. So, in addition to the regular building materials, I also needed the raw materials and blueprints for 2 sets of foldable aluminum alloy sunrooms, as well as 5 sets of solar power supply equipment, 5 sets of equipment that could support kinetic energy power generation, and 5 sets of water filtration equipment. I especially emphasized that the specifications of the equipment could be small, but the quality must be excellent. In addition, I purchased a large amount of food and daily necessities from different supermarkets and asked the supermarket staff to help me put them in the trunk of my car. After they finished loading the car, I would transfer them into my personal space and then go to the next supermarket to buy more. After being busy for 10 days like this, I finally moved all the things into the cave on Longyan Mountain. While heaving a sigh of relief, I had to go back to that disgusting home and pretend to have returned from a business trip, and when I said that I was about to start my next business trip, I endured a round of sarcasm from my husband and mother-in-law, but I clearly saw a trace of joy in their disgusted expressions. Yes, when I'm not at home, they can have open contacts with that mistress. 8. On July 26th, There were less than 3 days left until the torrential rain in my previous life. I can't say that I'm completely satisfied with this temporary shelter on the top of Longyan Mountain, but I've already done the best I can for now. At least, there's no problem in holding out for 2 months during the flood disaster, whether it's a rare natural disaster or the sixth mass extinction of species. The truth will surely be revealed in 2 months. If the flood still doesn't subside by then and the government doesn't have any countermeasures, then it's probably very difficult for humanity to survive either. After putting the customized folding sailboat, waterproof engine, floating wood, oxygen cylinders, folding mountain bikes, mountaineering shoes, headlamps, trekking poles, etc., into my personal space, the space was full. I barely stuffed in a little more food and drink supplies, and then headed back to the city. I booked a high-end hotel for 2 nights. During the day, I hired a private coach to teach me how to swim, and at night, I ordered a spa to relax, thanks to my somewhat useful brain and the physical strength I've exercised by going up and down the mountain these days. Although my swimming posture isn't very good, I can finally paddle in the water in the breaststroke position for 20 or 30 minutes and hold my breath for about 2 minutes. I can't compare with a swimming expert. But for an ordinary person like me who couldn't swim at all before, this is already very difficult. 9. On the evening of July 28th, I pretended to return from a business trip and went back to that stinky home. I don't know if the government also paid attention to my predictions, but I found a lot of details that were different from my previous life. The community bulletin board in the neighborhood posted the self-help methods for natural disasters, especially emphasizing how to save oneself in a flood, and also posted a topographic map of the surrounding area of the community. There were a large number of goods piled up in the bicycle shed. I secretly checked at night and found that they were life buoys and life jackets that hadn't been inflated yet. Most importantly, there were self-help method leaflets inserted on the doorknob of my home, which were like small advertisements. This can be considered as home propaganda, right? I heaved a sigh of relief. Judging from this, it seems that when the flood comes, everyone won't be as hasty as they were in my previous life. 10. In the early morning of July 29th, the torrential rain arrived as scheduled, and the high temperature of 40 degrees finally disappeared. Most people on the internet were overjoyed. They were happy because of the long-awaited rain after a drought and the drop in temperature during the hot summer. I couldn't help but sigh. It seems that the long period of scorching sun has made them forget the fear they felt when they saw my predictions. They didn't take the red rainstorm warning seriously at all. After all, the last time it happened was 11 years ago, and the disasters and sufferings had long been erased in the long river of memory. Moreover, the experts said that the impact of the rainstorm weather brought by this typhoon would only last for 6 to 8 hours. And the rainstorm would turn into light rain the next morning, but it would bring a week-long cool weather as a result. And now, ignoring the predictions of the disaster and simply believing in the words of the experts in the weather forecast, they will desperately long for the scorching sun to return every day in the future. 11. In the early morning of August 1st, the torrential rain had been falling for a full 3 days and 3 nights, in the past 72 hours. The precipitation in Beijing had reached 600 millimeters. This was almost the annual precipitation in Beijing before. A few hours ago, under the leadership of my mother-in-law, the three of us moved into the woman's room on the top floor. My mother-in-law carried a box of valuables, and that disgraceful man held 3 life jackets, and I, on my back, carried 3 oxygen cylinders. In my left hand, I held a 29-inch suitcase filled with food, and in my right hand, I grabbed the only inflatable rubber boat at home. If someone who didn't know saw me, they would think I was the reincarnation of the Hulk. Obviously, the two of them had already been prepared to mock me for being useless. However, they didn't expect that I could carry all the luggage in one go with just a slight gasp for breath. Their faces turned a reddish color as if they were holding in their excrement. Humph. Why didn't I realize in my previous life that they didn't simply dislike me for not being able to have children? Instead, they were evil by nature. Yes, if they weren't evil by nature, how could they have bought a docile and easy-to-control daughter-in-law from others? 12. During the day on August 1st, the red rainstorm warning was upgraded to a red flood warning. In several districts with slightly lower terrain in the capital city, the streets had already turned into riverbeds of the flood. Bodies occasionally floated on the turbulent water tides, all of them naked. the current had carried away their clothes, bringing them back to the state they were in when they first came into the world. However, the number of casualties was obviously fewer than in the previous life. Most of the floating bodies were pitiful people who insisted on going out despite dissuasion, and a few were soldiers and workers engaged in rescue and disaster relief. As for the incident of more than 100 people being trapped and dying due to waterlogging in the subway station, it didn't happen at all. After issuing the red rainstorm warning this time, the government didn't wait for various enterprises and institutions to respond on their own. Instead, it showed an uncharacteristic toughness and directly issued the order to the property management companies of each office location, not allowing any unit that hadn't obtained approval to go to work without permission. Once discovered, a fine notice would be directly sent to the property management company. And in serious cases, the business license might even be revoked. In order to keep their jobs, the property management companies took measures such as locking the doors and cutting off the power to reduce the situation of companies in the buildings going to work. The effect was very remarkable. At the same time, the government shut down most of the subway stations and lines, for the lines that were still in operation. Passengers needed to show proof that they were relevant workers ensuring the basic operation of the city before they could take the subway. 13. On the morning of August 2nd, the torrential rain was still falling. I was extremely nervous. In 24 hours, the building I was in was going to collapse, and I would, as always, be kicked into the water by them. The difference was that I would summon the floating wood from my space, and then inflate the life jacket that I had already worn under my coat and float beside them. I would use my clumsy swimming skills to maintain my balance, fasten the oxygen cylinder tightly in the bottle holder around my waist, and let the current push me forward, until I saw the three of them, who couldn't row a boat, being swallowed up by the turbulent current. Then, I just needed a place to stand on. Maybe it would be a tree by the roadside, or the roof of a private car that occasionally emerged from the water, or a building. I would launch my folding sailboat there and then head northeast all the way to my shelter, the home that I truly put my heart and soul into. But I didn't expect that at noon, a huge difference from my previous life occurred. In the homeowners group of the community issued a notice written in red characters. 14. Notice. In accordance with the instructions of the superior competent department, there is a major safety hazard in this community. Please all residents wear warm clothes and gather in front of each building before 14:00. The municipal government will organize vehicles and boats to transfer you to the resettlement site. Note that this is an emergency personnel transfer, and resources are limited. Please do not carry large pieces of luggage. 15. If you want to go, you go. I'm pregnant. How can my baby withstand the bumps? The government is asking us to transfer. There's a major safety hazard. We have to listen to the government. If you want to listen, you listen. What safety hazard could there be? At worst, the first floor will be flooded. We're on the top floor. What could go wrong? This high-end community has good drainage and waterproofing. Look, it hasn't leaked at all even after 3 days of rain. You don't understand. 25 years ago, I was in Wuhan, and that building couldn't withstand the water at all. You also know that it was 25 years ago. This is the capital city. Don't compare it with other places. My mother-in-law and the mistress had a fierce argument. It's really rare. She actually dared to be harsh on the biological mother of her precious grandson. However, I didn't expect that she had some sense of crisis and knew that it was really unsafe in the building. I still remember that when the building collapsed in my previous life, she was indeed the most clear-headed. She immediately told us to hold the bedding tightly against the wall, and that's how we were able to row a boat in the water later. I ignored their argument and put on my clothes on my own. Then I tied the cuffs and bottoms of my pants tightly with plastic wrap. When the overwhelming flood swept into the building and the huge steel structures crashed into the water, they would all learn to shut up. No, what they would learn wasn't to shut up, but to scream as the building trembled, then cough violently after being choked by the water, and then have their throats scratched by the sand and mud, and finally be rendered speechless by the huge waves. When I pushed the door open and went out, I had already heard the result of the argument. There was no doubt that my mother-in-law lost, because her precious son would always choose himself over his mother with a lower cultural level. 16. At 13:30, I stood downstairs. The accumulated water at this time had just risen above my ankles. It was hard for anyone to imagine that the seemingly gentle water level line now would turn into overwhelming waves in the next dozen or so hours. In the places I could see, not many people were waiting downstairs. Some people had clearly already come downstairs, but seeing that the water level was still shallow, they went back up. As the saying goes, good advice is hard to persuade those who are determined to die, and great compassion cannot save those who give up on themselves. The chance to survive was right in front of them, yet some people would still give it up on their own. Just as I was thinking about whether to post in the community group to persuade everyone, a man in military uniform suddenly walked up to me. 17. Are you Miss Emily? Huh, Miss Emily, right. I saw that he seemed to frown because of my hesitation. The shadow of my previous life made me naturally distrust others. A strange soldier who could call out my name even made me feel a bit panicked. As an ordinary person like me, how could I have attracted the attention of the authorities, unless they had discovered my secret? Don't be nervous, I'm John, the captain of the 17th team of the current Flood Control Emergency Command Center. I received an order from my superiors to invite Miss Emily to the command center for a meeting. I didn't want to go, but I had to. If the authorities had already discovered my secret, I had nowhere to run. 18. It was really unexpected that the location of the command center turned out to be on the top floor of a shopping mall. I had originally thought it would be in an underground air raid shelter. What surprised me even more was that the commander of the command center was actually a woman, and she looked to be only in her 30s. In front of her, countless display screens were showing the live situation of the disaster. But every once in a while, a display screen would turn a yellowish-brown color or go black. I stared carefully for a few minutes before realizing that it was because the drones had been knocked into the water by the waves or directly destroyed. In the howl of nature, everything was so fragile. People, trees, and buildings were all like ants to nature, with no difference at all. 19. The commander said her name was Audrey. She could spare 10 minutes to answer my questions, but after that, I had to work for her. What choice did I have? She could have forced me, but she was willing to answer my questions. What use am I to you? She was a bit surprised, obviously. In her expectation, my first question shouldn't have been this: I need your personal space. The load capacity of the helicopter is limited. With your space, the quantity of supplies we can transport each time will be greatly increased, especially, there are some supplies that must be kept away from water. How do you know? Miss Emily's actions haven't been hidden from us. You went to 5 supermarkets in a row to purchase supplies, but they couldn't even fill up a trunk. Anyone with discernment can see that there's something wrong. Okay, I'll do it. Aren't you going to ask what exactly to transport and where to transport it? No need, I'll find out eventually. There's a question I thought you would ask, but even if you didn't ask, I still want to tell you. I was also reborn. In my previous life, I endured for 60 days during the flood disaster, and then I was reborn a year ago, 20. In the more than 50 days that followed, I transferred among 4 aviation transport teams. The transportation was carried out day and night without stopping. The eyes of all the soldiers were bloodshot. As for me, I could still take short naps during the intervals of the flights. The supplies being transported were completely different from what I had imagined. They weren't firearms and ammunition that couldn't get wet or food and drinking water. Instead, they were floating island components that were compressed into 1 square meter areas and could be quickly assembled. These floating island components were quickly deployed in various areas with deeper water levels, forming temporary resettlement sites all over the country. After all, people will feel at ease once they have a place to land. 21. After all the temporary resettlement sites were properly arranged, I returned to the capital city. This time, I met 37 people. 3 of them were on site, and the rest participated via video. Audrey introduced me to them in a grand manner. Then she explained everything to me. It turned out that I wasn't the only reborn person. Everyone was reborn, and she was the one who was reborn the earliest among us and also the one who lived the longest in the previous life, without exception. All of us had all the clear memories from the moment of our death in the previous life back to the day of our rebirth, and a special ability. Mine was the personal space, Audrey's was eagle-eye vision, Violet's was the ability to heal, Joseph's was the ability to change gravity. Before the disaster arrived, all the reborn people shouldered the heaviest responsibilities and became the commanders or military advisors of the command centers in various places. Only then did I understand why I didn't receive any warnings for spreading rumors or false information at all when I was causing a stir on the internet and predicting the world disaster, and all kinds of man-made disasters in my memory either disappeared or became much smaller in scale. I asked Audrey why everyone had gathered together, but they hadn't contacted me before the flood disaster arrived. She said that all the reborn people had towering resentment and an endless desire to survive. For every day they died later after the flood, the day of their rebirth would move forward by 6 days, and the reborn person before me was reborn 100 days before the disaster arrived. They judged that it should be very difficult for anyone to be a combination of these two factors in the early days of the flood disaster. Who would have thought that a freak like me would appear? 22. August 29th was the last day in Audrey's memory, among the 30 million population of the capital city. Only 15 million remained, although we had already done our best. In the end, we only saved half of the people. If this was the situation in the capital city, there were probably even fewer people left in other places. Audrey blamed herself. She felt that she should have done better, but she really had already done her best. For a flood disaster on a global scale, even if the government had spoken out. Without witnessing that scene, no one would have believed it. Before the flood arrived, she took the lead in building tens of thousands of resettlement sites across the country and developed quickly assembled floating islands together with scientific research personnel as a large number of temporary resettlement sites. She planned out the flood drainage routes across the country and evacuated the people along the routes in advance. She restored the time when each building collapsed and the causes of each major man-made disaster, and fully mobilized manpower for rescue. She wasn't a god. What else could she have done? I can't imagine what else could have been done to deal with an apocalypse in just 1 year. 22. On September 25th, the torrential rain finally stopped. Everyone couldn't believe it. Everyone thought that perhaps the world had become a cave of water curtains and there would never be daylight again. Someone sent me news about that family. The resource allocation was limited, in order to keep the precious son in the mistress's belly safe. My mother-in-law was reluctant to eat or drink and gave everything to the mistress. Unexpectedly, the baby was overfed, and in the end, due to limited conditions during childbirth, there was a difficult delivery and massive bleeding, resulting in the death of both the mother and the child. After losing her grandson, my mother-in-law became depressed and gradually stopped eating and drinking. The resettlement site sent many people to try to persuade her, but it was of no avail. In the end, she suddenly died in the middle of the night. After my mother-in-law died, no one took care of that man. Since he was unwilling to do it himself, he exchanged the gold that his mother-in-law had hidden for use after the flood with others for food, drink, and even women. As a result, someone was tempted by the money and robbed him. He refused to submit even at the risk of death and was stabbed twice. He was exposed to the rain all the time, and his wounds were severely infected. When he was found, he was barely breathing and died soon after, and those who robbed him of his gold knew that they wouldn't be tolerated in the resettlement site and fled. There hasn't been any new news about them yet. 22. On October 2nd, the flood disaster had basically subsided. Among the 30 million population of the capital city, only 8 million remained. Thank goodness, human civilization was still there. But Audrey was obviously not satisfied. She asked me, "Is this all we can do?" I told her, yes. Because we are just human beings after all. 23. In the middle of May 2024, the capital city had already regained its vitality. Audrey said that in order to celebrate, she invited all the reborn people to gather together. She asked us if we wanted to take a big gamble. I agreed. 24. Cough, cough. My body involuntarily convulsed, and my hands tightly pressed against my neck. Who said that when you suffer great harm, you won't feel pain? What's wrong with her? Call the school doctor. Some noisy voices violently poured into my ears. I suddenly opened my eyes, and the bright sunlight made me dizzy. Sleeping beside me was my stupid pig of a husband, whose sleep quality was so good that he wouldn't even bat an eye if struck by lightning. Except, I grabbed the person beside me and asked eagerly, "What year is it now?" Yes, it was the year I graduated, the year I hadn't been sold to someone else as a wife, and it was 4.5 years before the torrential rain arrived. I won the gamble. 24. In the apocalyptic end times, the floodwaters rose to the sky. We tried our best but only saved a small number of people. At Audrey's initiative, we planned to take a big gamble. I slit my own throat with a knife. Before closing my eyes, I vaguely felt the spray of blood. When I opened my eyes again, it was 4.5 years before the torrential rain arrived. Except for my memories, I didn't acquire any other special abilities, but it didn't matter, because from now on, we would issue the red rainstorm warning. Story 2, as a girl who loves a good bargain, I navigate the world of discount groups while the ladies downstairs band together for grocery sales. Just before a torrential downpour heralded what seemed like the end of days, I luckily hoarded a pile of discounted goods. A move that inadvertently saved my life. One evening, just past 8 p.m., several messages popped up in the discount chat group. To thank our loyal and new customers, our biggest sale ever is about to start. Limited quantities, first come first served. These discount groups sell slightly damaged goods at reduced prices, but the quality and usability remain unaffected. Being a bargain hunter, I've joined more discount groups than I have contacts in my Instagram. With just a minute to go before the sale, I was wide-eyed and holding my breath. Everyone loves a good deal, and it was all about speed now. Soon, a countdown began on my phone screen. 3, 2, 1, go. Big brand self-heating hot pots, originally 119 yuan per box, now just 59 yuan. Wow, 50% off. I'll take 10 boxes. Then another link flashed by. Various instant noodles, originally 59 yuan per box, now 39 yuan, with a limit of 2 boxes per flavor: braised beef, spicy sour cabbage, chicken mushroom. Seafood, 2 boxes of each flavor, and there's my year's supply of instant noodles. Alcohol blocks, great for outdoor picnics, originally 30 yuan per box, now just 9 yuan. Buy 5 boxes and get a free tower stove. What's there to hesitate about? A discount and a free stove. Sanitary pads, wet wipes, and tissue sets from big brands, originally 79 yuan per set, now just 39 yuan. Such significant savings aren't common. I thought about the almost finished rolls at home and quickly ordered 10 sets. Juice drinks, 5 flavors, originally 39 yuan per set, now 29 yuan. They're 2L each. I'll take 2 sets. Then came frozen foods, hot pot bases, ready-to-eat meals, pure milk, 8 treasure porridge, canned lunch meat, various snacks, cured meats, dry sausages. Discounts save money, but they can also make you lose your senses. By dawn, the sale had ended on time. I looked at my significantly depleted savings, belatedly realizing I had been too impulsive, spending over 10,000 yuan, considering that as a monthly salaried worker earning 5,000 yuan, I had saved up for over a year. But then, thinking about not having to spend extra on supplies for the next few months, I quickly came to terms with it. The same products are nearly half the price in these groups compared to supermarkets. Buying them is a true saving. I really am a master of saving money. The next morning, I received a private message from the group admin. Due to the large amount I spent, the store would prioritize home delivery. Delighted by this good news, I turned around to see the empty water dispenser and immediately opened the water purchasing app. The app quickly displayed a notification. To thank our customers, we now offer 1 free bottle for every 10 purchased. Who can refuse a free bottle of water? Since the store running the promotion was in the same city. The delivery staff arrived that afternoon. Box after box filled my living room. A few boxes of self-heating hot pots were left, not too heavy, so I let the delivery person leave and casually carried 3 boxes back myself. Halfway there, I suddenly heard a snicker. "Phoebe, you never change, always going for these cheap goods." It was Lincoln, my ex-boyfriend who had cheated last month. We lived in the same complex and met through mutual friends, despite his honest appearance. He was a philanderer, with more girls in his contacts than I have discount groups in my phone. Even post-breakup, he often harassed and mocked me for my bargain hunting. Looking down at the self-heating hot pots in my arms, I thought, why aren't they presentable? Just because the outer packaging is a bit damaged, people like Lincoln, who naturally love to show off their sense of superiority, are unreasonable. I put down the boxes, took a few steps forward, and slapped him hard across the face. Followed by a few strong kicks. Good dogs don't block the road. Get lost. Lincoln was stunned, and it was his girlfriend who reacted first, threatening with her phone. "How can you hit people? Believe it or not, I'll call the police. Call the police. I laughed and pulled out my phone. Let them come. I have something I'd like to show everyone. Realizing something, Lincoln's expression changed. Forget it. What's the point in arguing with a crazy woman? He then forcibly pushed his girlfriend into a nearby apartment building. As the drama dispersed, the onlookers looked on, their expressions showing they wished there was more to see. An elderly lady approached and asked, "Young lady, what were you saying you'd share with us earlier?" Me, of course. I couldn't possibly spill the beans about Lincoln's shabby affairs. After all, some things lose their value once spoken aloud. Once I got home, I cleared out the storage room first. The apartment has 2 bedrooms and a living room. My best friend occupies the other bedroom. Taking advantage of the shift adjustments this week, she took a 3-day mini vacation to visit her hometown. The supplies I bought, over 10,000 worth, weren't a lot, but they filled the storage room to the brim. Just as I was checking the orders, it suddenly started raining outside. The raindrops, large as soybeans, hit the windows rapidly and forcefully. A thin mist quickly enveloped the entire neighborhood. At that moment, a message popped up on my phone. It was a red heavy rain alert issued by the Meteorological Bureau. Soon after, a notice was also posted in the company group chat. Dear colleagues, the Meteorological Bureau has issued a red heavy rain alert to support the government's efforts. The company has decided to close for 3 days from May 19th to May 21st. Please cease all outdoor activities during this period and avoid going out unless necessary. Ensure to close all doors and windows to guarantee your personal safety. 3 days off. I looked up at the curtain of rain outside the window, a sense of unease building up inside. The fact that even our stingy boss had to give us time off indicated the severity of the impending heavy rainfall. However, looking at the supplies crammed into the storage room, I quickly reassured myself, what harm could more rain do? If anything, I just wouldn't go outside. If I budget carefully, the supplies I've stocked are enough to last me half a year without any issues. The only real worry is the potential loss of water or power. I thought for a moment and then charged my old phone and 2 power banks. I also filled the bathtub and kitchen sink with water. I glanced over the pots and pans in the kitchen. Not enough, still not enough. Cooking, washing clothes, washing my face, brushing my teeth. Doesn't each one require water? Though back in my hometown, we have the custom of storing rainwater in cisterns. Rainwater, after all, comes into contact with bacteria during its descent. It's best avoided unless absolutely necessary. With this concern in mind, I paced around the room, my gaze suddenly pausing on the blanket on the bed. Last year, when I moved, I bought several large transparent sealable bags to keep the dust off the bedding. I still have about a dozen unused ones, each sized 100 centimeters by 130 centimeters. Although tap water can also deteriorate if left in the air too long, it's comforting to be overprepared than to do nothing at all. Soon, the community group chat also forwarded a notice from the local government. Dear residents, the Meteorological Bureau has issued a persistent red heavy rain alert. Please ensure all doors and windows are securely closed and avoid going out to prevent unnecessary losses. Despite such messages, many in the group didn't take it seriously. We've had typhoons in past years, and life went on as usual, didn't it? Schools are closed, companies are shut down. Finally, a legitimate reason to rest. The school just announced they're letting out 2 hours early today. Anyone want to join me to pick up the kids? Seeing the casual banter of the residents in the group chat, my anxiety eased. I'm not a local, indeed, I don't have the experience these locals have with typhoon days. But if these locals are saying there's no need to panic, perhaps things aren't as bad as I imagined. Maybe I was overreacting. Relieved, I started distracting myself by scrolling through videos online. Messages kept popping up in the discount group chat. Most were customers asking if the heavy rain would affect shipping. Yes, sadly, even the shop owner was helpless. Due to the red heavy rain alert, the shop had been forced to close, let alone ship orders on time. The group was filled with complaints, and the owner could only try his best to soothe the customers, promising more discounts once the rain stopped. Unexpectedly, this persistent red heavy rain alert in Lawn City made the trending searches, catching the attention of my relatives far away in the Northwest. Dad, Mom, don't worry, I live in a high-rise building with dozens of floors. The rain can't reach me here. Auntie, I have plenty of food here. I won't starve. Cousin, just relax. I've taped up the windows with duct tape to make sure no rain gets in. After addressing my relatives' concerns, I finally took a deep breath. Back home in the northwest, surrounded by high mountains and deep inland, we seldom see rainfall, let alone such severe storm warnings. I leaned against the window, watching the blurred scene outside in the neighborhood. It's just a severe storm, after all. I didn't believe it could rain continuously for 3 days, but as it turned out, I underestimated nature. A severe rainstorm did indeed last for 3 days and seemed to be getting stronger. On the first day, the water in the flower beds of our complex overflowed. By the second day, the accumulated water had seeped into the garage, causing endless complaints from the residents. On the third day, the rainwater flooded into the first floor of the buildings, and panic finally set in among the inhabitants. How is this rainstorm even happening? How many days has it been raining now? Yes, we've had heavy rains in the past, but there were always breaks. This time, it's relentless. Let's not worry about whether it stops or not. Does anyone have a moment to lend a hand? Water is getting into my house. Seeing this message, several kind-hearted residents quickly volunteered to help. This is probably the goodness inherent in human nature. Helping others within one's capabilities, holding a can of steaming 8-treasure porridge. I sighed contentedly. Electricity and gas had been cut off since the second day of the severe rainstorm. Being able to enjoy a hot meal now, all thanks to the alcohol blocks I had bought before the storm. On the 5th day of the rainstorm, the rain pelted the windows like pebbles, sending shivers down my spine. I had never seen such heavy rain in my life. It was as if an army was charging down, unstoppable. Back in my hometown, we had seen heavy rains, but they never lasted this long. A continuous 5-day downpour was unheard of. I stared out the window, watching the fierce storm and feeling the slight tremors of the window panes. Suddenly, water began seeping through the gaps sealed with tape. I quickly grabbed a rag to wipe it dry. Over these days, our community's chat group had turned into a mutual aid group. My child has a fever. Does anyone have medicine? Ibuprofen or cold sachets would do. All our groceries are gone, but we still have some instant noodles and pasta. Would anyone like to trade? My house is flooded. Can someone please offer shelter? Willing to pay? Seeing more and more messages in the group chat made my heart heavy again, especially when someone mentioned that the neighboring county was a flood discharge area. I suddenly remembered that my best friend's hometown was in that county. Hey Quinn, how are things over there? Before I could finish, I sensed a heaviness in my friend's mood. Phoebe, our area is too low-lying. Tens of thousands of acres of crops, all flooded. How are you and your parents? The waters entered our home. We had to move to higher ground. Leaning by the window, I saw the message my friend had just sent me and couldn't help but tear up. 301902. That's the password to my bedroom. There's some food there, and a first aid kit. If you feel unwell, remember to take some medicine. Don't be too trusting if rescue doesn't come. Don't foolishly give everything away. Phoebe, you must take care. While I was cooking instant noodles, I went to the window to check the situation again. The cars that had barely managed to leave the underground garage were once again submerged in water. Looking out the window, only a little of the car roofs could be seen. Since the heavy rain started, the first thing I do each morning is to check in with my family. The sound of the relentless rain mixed with my mother's nagging strangely settled my mood. With the temperature dropping for several days, several residents in the building started having low-grade fevers, but with over a meter of water, no external vehicles could come in, and no vehicles could leave the complex. The exchange of supplies in the mutual aid group was increasing. People were running out of water, others were out of food, everyone was trapped at home, passively waiting for rescue. On the 10th day of the rainstorm, the water had risen to the 3rd floor. Residents on the 3rd floor cursed as they moved their belongings upstairs. The rescue team was still nowhere in sight, and the atmosphere in the building grew more tense. Today, the quarreling from downstairs continued for a long time. I listened intently but unfortunately couldn't figure out the reason. Electricity had been out for a while now. Even though I still had 2 fully charged power banks, I dared not waste them since I didn't know when the power would be restored. My daily chats with my family also shortened from half an hour to just a few hurried sentences. Today, it was still my mom who answered the phone. I was feeling a bit odd. Why hasn't my dad called me recently? There was a pause on the other end of the phone before the voice continued. Your dad's in the bathroom. Should I go find him so you can talk? No need. It was only after I hung up that I felt something was off. It could be coincidence once, but could it really be that every time I call, my dad is always busy? Just as I was hesitating whether to call him directly, my phone screen suddenly lit up. Phoebe, hearing that familiar voice, my anxious heart finally settled. The sound of light rain came through from the other end of the phone. Dad, is it raining back home too? No, I'm watching TV. They are reporting on the widespread rainfall and the affected areas. Oh, I responded, completely relieved. Phoebe, didn't you buy 3 cases of instant hot pot last week? I've got nothing to eat here. Could you share a case with me? It was Lincoln, that scoundrel. I casually tapped to hang up, but Lincoln quickly sent another message to confront me. Phoebe, everyone is lacking food and drink now. How can you be so selfish? Not even willing to share a box of instant hot pot. Selfish. Lincoln's words made me laugh in anger. Give a bone to a dog and it wags its tail in gratitude. But what about him? No matter how good he is, he can't stop cheating with other women. I blocked him immediately, but I hadn't anticipated that he'd stoop so low as to spread rumors in the residence group that I had supplies. Phoebe, do you even have a conscience? With floods everywhere, it's the hardest time for everyone. Why not share your supplies to help everyone get through this tough time? We are all neighbors who see each other daily. How can you bear to watch everyone starve? Seeing these messages, a few residents who didn't usually stock up began to get ideas. Some even directly mentioned Lincoln. You just said that the girl named Phoebe in our building has a lot of supplies. That's right, Lincoln quickly replied, eager to have someone engage with him. Before the storm, I saw her bring home 3 cases of instant hot pot. The person who asked went silent. 3 cases of instant hot pot. At most 18 boxes, half a month has passed. How many could she have left? Seeing no one responding, Lincoln continued to rant in the group. Phoebe likes to buy cheap discount goods. Maybe she's hoarded a lot of food but just isn't willing to share it with everyone. Believe me, I'm her boyfriend. I know her best. Someone who couldn't stand Lincoln using the group for his personal vendetta retorted. Boyfriend, looks more like an ex-boyfriend to me, otherwise. Why would you be causing trouble for the girl? Are you hoping that people from Building B go and bother her? I shuddered as I read through the group messages. The rain had only been ongoing for a dozen days, and everyone still had some supplies, so reason was still prevailing. But as time passed, supplies would inevitably dwindle. I couldn't imagine the trouble it would bring me if Lincoln spread these messages a few days later. I took a deep breath and uploaded the evidence I had collected before breaking up, a video of Lincoln cheating with multiple women, clear and uncensored. Almost the moment the video was uploaded, the group exploded. Damn, that's explosive. No wonder she broke up. Who could stand such a scumbag? Wow, what a unique hobby. Filming it all. Ha ha ha, satisfying. That's how you deal with a scumbag. Trying to frame the girl and got solidly debunked. Damn, the admin's quick. I didn't even finish watching before the video was gone. Hey, bro upstairs. I saved it quickly. PM me if you want it. I knew that once the video was out, Lincoln's reputation was ruined, but what did that have to do with me? He was unkind first. Even if he tried to stir up residents' emotions later, they would have to question his credibility. While I was pleased with myself for trapping Lincoln, I suddenly received a notification from the group admin for spreading pornographic video. You are muted for 3 hours. Alright, Phoebe, you are ruthless. You just wait. After dropping those harsh words, Lincoln stopped messaging. Yet, I couldn't help but feel that he was brewing an even bigger scheme, although I can't just ask him directly. Hey, I've crossed you once. What's your plan for revenge? Unless he's a fool, he certainly wouldn't reveal his plans outright. I put down my phone and paced around the living room. I live in Building B, and Lincoln lives in Building A. With the deep water flooding the ground floor, it's unlikely we'll run into each other for now, but desperation can drive people to extreme actions. Lincoln is a man who cares deeply about his reputation. He wouldn't shamelessly seek help from an ex-girlfriend like me unless he had no other choice. After a long contemplation, my gaze settled on the front door. Both the balcony and bedroom windows were secured with burglar bars. If Lincoln wanted to get in, he would have to go through the front door. I checked the door lock again, then, I pushed the washing machine, refrigerator, and a sofa against the door for extra security. Both the bedroom and the storage room were secured with code locks, impenetrable without the passwords. I thought to myself, if the front door is the first line of defense, then surely the bedroom is the second. Before going to bed, I removed a wooden panel from the wardrobe and positioned it strategically. The panel was set to brace against the bedroom door on one end and against the bed on the other, with the bed against the wall. This setup meant that even if someone managed to enter the living room, they couldn't open the bedroom door unless they dismantled it. It was a bit of a hassle to set up every night, but it seemed a small inconvenience compared to my safety. Day 12 of the torrential rains. The night passed without incident. Hearing cheers outside the window, I quickly ran to the bedside to look. Unfortunately, it wasn't a rescue team. Instead, it was just a smattering of supplies floating on the water. There was a large supermarket nearby. Probably a window had been left open, and as the rain intensified, items from the shelves were swept into the floodwaters. From a distance, I couldn't tell exactly what was floating on the water, but the colorful packaging suggested it was food. Some people, ignoring the risks of the flood, dived into the water to grab bag after bag of food. I also saw Lincoln looking out of his window. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't reach the water. Even though the supplies floated near Building A, he could only look on helplessly. Day 15 of the torrential rains. A new message was posted in the residents' group chat. Due to the severe torrential rains, several cities around the world are submerged. In our country, the dam at W County in Blue City has burst, causing massive floods into a county. Many areas are now underwater up to 15 meters deep. It is anticipated that the surrounding regions of a county will continue to be affected. Residents are urged to ensure their safety. Currently, multiple national rescue teams have headed to a county for rescue operations. Reading this notice, my hand trembled involuntarily, and I frantically called my best friend Quinn. Hello, the user you dialed has turned off their phone. Please try again later. Hello, the user you dialed has turned off their phone. I couldn't get through at all. Holding back my tears, I looked at the last few messages Quinn had sent me yesterday. Phoebe, the rescue team has arrived. So many people have come. It didn't make sense. The rescue teams had arrived, so why was there still a dam burst? Unable to contact Quinn, I could only search for snippets of information online. During the day, I couldn't eat thinking about Quinn. By night, I was too hungry to sleep. With a heavy sigh, I resignedly got up from the bed. Thankfully, I had a stash of instant food, which made it easy to fill my stomach. I lit the alcohol stove and placed a small milk pot on it. After the water boiled, I added a tea egg, then 2 fish balls, and finally some instant noodles. Once the noodles softened, I turned off the heat. I still had plenty of supplies, but with the floodwaters showing no signs of receding, I dared not waste anything. I was halfway through my noodles when suddenly, I heard the sound of the door lock turning. Was someone trying to pick the lock? A jolt of fear shot through me, and I instinctively wanted to run to the bedroom. But then I thought, if someone had made it into the living room, how far could they be from the bedroom? Besides, with the washing machine, refrigerator, and sofa piled up against the door, it would take considerable effort for anyone to get in. With this thought, I mustered up the courage to stop. Whoever you are outside, I want you to leave now, I shouted, or I'll call for help. There was silence for a moment before the voice responded. Phoebe, don't be afraid, it's me. It was Lincoln's voice. I quickly stepped back in shock. Lincoln, that scoundrel, was even more frightening, right? Phoebe, I mean no harm. I just want to borrow some supplies, he said. Me, a typical scoundrel, never giving up his thieving ways. Lincoln, I advise you to leave now, or I really will call for help in the group, I warned. Phoebe, I'm really desperate. For old time's sake, let me in to get some food, he pleaded. I didn't respond, but I knew Lincoln wouldn't give up until he achieved his goal, so I urgently sought help in the residents' group chat. Everyone, can someone help? This scoundrel is here to steal supplies and is now picking my lock. It was the middle of the night, and I wasn't sure how many would see this message, so I kept copying and pasting the message, hoping the notification sound would wake some people up. I held a kitchen knife tightly, my gaze fixed on the door. By sending that video, Lincoln and I had completely fallen out. I didn't believe he would just take some supplies and leave, nor did I believe he would just let me be. Lincoln soon noticed my messages flooding the group chat. You ungrateful bitch, you really don't know when to appreciate what you're given, he cursed. Just you wait, Once I get this door open, you'll see what I mean. The door was being violently shaken. Clearly, he was trying to break it down. I held the knife in one hand and kept my eyes glued to the screen, hoping someone would see my plea for help. Gradually, I despaired, despite the noise. None of my neighbors came out to help. Maybe they just wanted to keep to themselves, or perhaps they too wanted a share of whatever could be taken. As for the thoughts of others, I had no way of knowing. All I could do was grip the knife tightly. If Lincoln dared to rob me, what's stopping him from killing me? After all, without a witness, who could challenge him later? The shaking of the door grew more intense. Just when I thought a confrontation was inevitable, suddenly a new message appeared in the resident group chat. Girl, don't be afraid, I'm almost at your floor. Outside, I soon heard fighting noises. As I hesitated whether to open the door and help the Good Samaritan, a new private message popped up. Don't open the door. There have been 2 men at your apartment door acting out a scene to trick you. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly withdrew my hand that was about to open the fridge. I suddenly remembered something I had overlooked. Lincoln couldn't possibly have swum to my apartment building on his own. Soon, the sounds of fighting in the corridor stopped. A strange male voice said, Girl, I've got him under control. Quickly find some rope to tie him up. Hearing this, I peeked through the peephole, but both men stood in the shadows, barely visible. My heart tightened, and I began to doubt the man outside. If 2 men were attacking at the same time, my door wouldn't hold for long. At this point, all I could do was desperately try to buy time. Pretending to be scared, I said, Sir, I don't have any rope. What do I do? The man, barely containing his impatience, said, Then find some strong strips of cloth. Would curtains or sheets work? Which material is stronger? Whatever you choose. Woo-woo. But what if the cloth isn't strong and he escapes? The man seemed to have reached his limit of patience. Then what do you suggest? Could you be a complete hero and take him to the community committee? The man's forehead bulged with veins as he blurted out, No. What if he escapes on the way? Seeing the man completely lose patience, fearing that further delays might provoke him, I reluctantly agreed to his demand. Please wait a moment, I'll go cut the curtain. Then, pretending to walk away, I messaged the administrator of the resident group privately. Yes, the same one who banned me for 3 hours for spreading an inappropriate video. How much longer till you can get here? I can't hold on much longer. The reply came with an emoticon. We've got people ready, arriving in 2 minutes. I breathed a sigh of relief. All I needed to do was hold on for 2 more minutes. Half a minute later, the man outside urged, Haven't you found the cloth yet? I've found it, I'm cutting it now. After another minute. Isn't it cut yet? It's cut, I'm picking the strongest one. Another half-minute passed. Isn't it ready yet? All right, I said in a deliberately pinched voice. Big brother, just wait a bit longer. I'm moving the sofa and the fridge that are piled behind the door right now. 2 minutes later, someone outside the door uttered words that sounded exactly like Lincoln. You bitch, you dared to deceive us. After a few knocks, I opened the door. What I saw were 2 men, tightly bound. I finally breathed a sigh of relief and turned towards the direction of the caretaker. Thank you for your help, old man. The man's expression froze for a second, then he slowly uttered, Old man. I looked up sharply, only to see a group of people in their 20s. Isn't the person I was dealing with called Uncle Nolan? Nolan's expression softened. This account originally belonged to my father. After he retired, he handed it over to me to manage. I nodded, as a reward for my help. I promised to give you 100 liters of pre-stored tap water. Did you bring any containers? We came in too much of a hurry. Didn't bring any. Nolan glanced at the young men beside him. What are you waiting for? Go get them. The young men scurried off quickly. It was just me and Nolan left at the scene. Nolan coughed lightly and looked up. What do you plan to do with these 2? Anything goes. As long as you don't kill anyone. I nodded, stepped forward, and was about to swing my hand when Nolan spoke again. Force is mutual. If you hit him, your hand will hurt too. I suggest using a tool, like a book or something. A dictionary would also work. My eyes lit up, feeling that was a good idea. I turned around and rolled up a magazine. Smack, smack, smack. I actually wanted to use a dictionary to hit them, but dictionaries are too heavy and cumbersome. By the time the young men returned, Lincoln and the other strangers' faces had already turned into steamed buns. As promised, I gave them the 100 liters of pre-stored tap water I had already mentioned when this tap water was collected. As for whether it has gone bad or is drinkable, that has nothing to do with me anymore. Although the neighbor across from me never came out from beginning to end, it was ultimately kind of him to remind me. I went back to the kitchen, grabbed 2 bags of instant noodles and a bottle of mineral water. I knocked on the neighbor's door, didn't say a word, just left the items on the ground and went back. I blocked the door again using the fridge and washing machine and other heavy items. Nolan also gave me a door stopper, claiming it worked better than using fridges and washing machines. I had just sat down on the sofa when an important alert popped up on my phone. Soon after, it was being forwarded everywhere, in the company group, resident group, and even in social circles. Dear citizens, the Meteorological Bureau has issued the latest typhoon warning. The super typhoon, Kayla, will make landfall tomorrow evening from the southeast coast, passing through cities such as Blue City, Tallinn City, and M City. Please take precautions and ensure your personal safety. Seeing this message, there was a quick outpour of complaints online. Can we even live anymore? The super heavy rain hasn't ended, and now a typhoon. My family has been out of food for 3 days. And there's no sign of the rescue team. I heard the rescue teams are prioritizing those areas with severe disasters. Our area is also badly hit by floods. Why isn't anyone rescuing us? Are you trying to compete with B County? Why don't you switch our places? Floods, again through B County. What did we do to deserve this? First, we were inexplicably turned into a flood discharge area, then a super typhoon. Has anyone considered the feelings of us residents of B County? Exactly. You can't just keep shearing the same sheep. The residents in the group also complained endlessly. Even though our neighborhood wasn't directly in the path of the typhoon, being near a county that was affected meant we wouldn't escape its impacts. The group soon started another round of resource swapping. Does anyone have extra tape? I'm willing to exchange food for it. Desperately need mineral water. We'll trade a bag of noodles for a bottle. Does anyone have medicine for diarrhea? I ate something that floated in the water yesterday and now my stomach is killing me. I watched these messages, feeling even more anxious. I had only ever seen natural disasters like typhoons on TV. Now it was happening right outside my door. As evening approached, I tried to call home to ease the tension, but after dialing I realized I couldn't get through. A closer look showed that the signal on my phone had completely disappeared. I had never felt such intense fear before. It took a lot of effort to fall asleep under the covers, and soon, I was startled awake again by the sound of urgent rain. For the past half-month, the area had been under a red heavy rainfall warning. This time, the rain seemed to be unusually heavy, as if the sky had split open, pouring down relentlessly. The windows rattled violently, as though they were on the brink of shattering at any moment. Drip, drip. Soon, rainwater began to seep in through the window cracks. I dared not wipe it away as I had before, fearing the glass might explode and thrust me into the relentless downpour. Gradually, I began to feel overwhelmed. Unbeknownst to me, the bed had started to vibrate. I hurriedly got up and looked out the window. It was dimly light outside, yet I could hardly see anything. A few minutes later, there was a sudden rapid knocking at the door. The familiar sound brought a sense of security. Nolan appeared, drenched, without knowing what had happened. As soon as I opened the door, he rushed to say, I just got a message. A tornado was spotted in the southern part of the city, and it's likely headed our way soon. I was startled. A tornado? That's even more terrifying than a typhoon. A natural disaster with immense destructive power. The tornado moves very fast. With this weather, it's too late to run. We have to find a way to save ourselves, Nolan said, quickly glancing around my apartment. Remember, stay away from the windows. If it gets really bad, hide in the bathroom. After nodding, I watched Nolan hurry off to warn the next house. Time waits for no one. I first opened Quinn's bedroom, moving all the valuable items and the medical kit out. If we survive this storm, and Quinn comes back, I will personally hand these things over to her. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I divided all the supplies into 3 parts. One hid in the bedroom closet, another in the storeroom, and the last in the bathroom. After securing everything, I took a bucket of drinking water and a backpack of supplies, and sat tightly against the bathroom wall on a thick mat, draped in a large down jacket that enveloped me completely. I took a deep breath, my gaze fixed on the narrow window that had been boarded up. I had done all I could. Now, it was in the hands of fate. The rain fiercely pelted the windows. As I awaited the tornado, each second seemed to stretch endlessly. I always felt I hadn't done enough, always worried it wasn't sufficient, so I put on another down jacket. Wearing two jackets together made me look almost penguin-like. But it suited me just fine, apart from being uncomfortably hot. These jackets provided maximum protection in case I lost my footing. Time slipped by, suddenly. After what felt like an eternity, a scream pierced the air from outside. The tornado is here. I couldn't see outside, but the slight shaking of the building was unmistakable. The booming sounds, along with the noise of buildings cracking along its path, constantly assaulted my ears. My legs went weak, my heart pounded furiously. It was over. Was our building going to be blown away too? I had seen the devastation of tornadoes on TV, tornadoes mixed with rain, dragging vehicles, trees, even broken buildings in their path, carrying a destructive force. How long had it been? A few minutes, or just several seconds. Next door, a crack sound followed by the shattering of glass. Then the house trembled. Something, maybe a wardrobe or a bed, was thrown against the wall with a loud bang. My heart skipped a beat, and I clung tighter to myself. Next door was my bedroom. If I hadn't listened to Nolan and had stayed there, I might have. I shuddered at the thought. The howling outside grew closer. I clenched my teeth, sweating profusely, but no matter how hot and stuffy it was, I dared not take off the down jackets. The shaking of the building intensified. Suddenly, the earth shook violently. It felt like something massive had struck the building. With a thud, I was thrown against the opposite wall due to inertia. Thankfully, the double layers of down jackets absorbed much of the impact. The cries from outside continued. I wasn't sure if someone had been swept into the water. Clutching the nearby water pipe, I tried to suppress the fear rising within me. After what seemed like forever, the trembling of the building finally ceased. I listened carefully to the sounds outside. The tornado has passed, and the corridors are filled with intermittent cries of sadness, repression, helplessness, fear, and anger, all of which are now being fully released. My legs had long since gone numb from squatting, and I carefully stood up, supporting myself on a water pipe. The living room was a mess. The large bed in the bedroom had fortuitously lodged itself against the window. The wardrobe had collapsed entirely, scattering its contents across the floor. But luckily, not everything had been swept away by the wind. After checking the storeroom, I was relieved to find the supplies there were still intact. After putting all the supplies back into the storeroom, I cautiously stepped over the broken glass in the living room and walked to the window. The floodwaters carried all sorts of debris, cars, billboards, uprooted trees, broken buildings, and even bodies that had accidentally been swept into the water. Fine rain pelted my face and a faint stench permeated the air. Due to the tornado, the Cocoa River had changed its course, and the floodwaters originally headed to B County were now redirected here. I gasped at the sight of the floodwaters, now about 20 meters high. Even if the rain stopped now, it would be impossible to leave the residential area anytime soon unless professional rescue teams came to evacuate the affected residents. However, considering the global extent of the catastrophic rain, with over 70% of cities submerged, I doubted rescue teams could manage. The remaining cities too faced their own challenges and were hard to reach. By evening, influenced by typhoon weather, the heavy rain returned with a vengeance. With the windows gone, the living room and bedroom quickly got drenched. Fortunately, the apartment's drainage system worked well. I managed a wry smile, found some wooden planks, and boarded up all the windows. Although not as secure as proper glass, it was better than nothing. By now, the floodwaters had risen to the 9th floor, with about one floor getting submerged every 2 days. I lived on the 22nd floor, and though not immediately at risk of flooding, continued rain would inevitably lead to it. What then? Rubbing my face, I tried to clear my thoughts. Besides the rain and floods, the tornado had also caused significant damage to the neighborhood. Few people in the building probably had any food reserves left. Hunger would soon become commonplace. On the 25th day of the rain, the floodwaters had reached the 15th floor. More and more residents began to crowd the corridors, dealing with their daily needs right there. This apocalypse, led by the relentless rain, was gradually pushing human endurance to its limits. I cracked open the wooden plank covering the window a little to get a clearer view downstairs. The number of bodies floating in the water seemed to have increased. In the distance, several apartment buildings showed no signs of survivors for days. If it were just starvation, how could entire buildings of people disappear so quickly unless someone was preying on those residents? With this chilling thought, I could no longer sit still. Although this speculation was inhumane, we were, after all, in an apocalypse where human nature was the most unpredictable. In the evening, I was modifying a baseball bat, hammering shiny nails into it. I had taken a wooden stick from the sofa and shaped it into a makeshift bat after an afternoon's work, then spent another 2 hours nailing thick, long nails into one end of the bat. Creating a primitive mace, I swung it, satisfied with the threatening sound it made in the air. As darkness fell, I moved the alcohol stove into the storeroom before daring to light it, knowing that any light could expose my supplies. The rain continued, and still, no rescue teams appeared. I had to adjust the use of my supplies, reducing meals from 3 to 2 a day and strictly rationing water. Suddenly, a commotion erupted downstairs. I instinctively turned off the stove. Unfortunately, the disturbance was too far from my floor to discern what was happening. In the middle of the night, a frantic knocking erupted on the doors outside my apartment, not just mine but also my neighbors. My heart skipped a beat as I gripped the mace beside me, and soon after, desperate cries for help filled the air. Is anyone there? Does anyone have any medicine, anything for stopping bleeding, reducing inflammation, pain relief, or disinfection will do? I have a good memory. And I quickly recognized the identity of the person calling for help, Peter. He was the young man who had always been following Nolan, running errands back and forth. Since the communication networks went down, most of the messages were delivered door to door by Nolan and his men, probably because they trusted Nolan. The neighbors quickly opened their doors. From their brief exchanges, I quickly understood the situation. Nolan was injured, some outsiders came looking for trouble, and although Nolan took his men to handle it, he was ambushed and severely injured. However, the neighbors only had a bottle of disinfectant alcohol. Peter grabbed the disinfectant and ran, but after running a few meters, he came back and knocked on my door. Miss Phoebe, our boss said to remind you to be careful these days. There was someone in the group causing trouble today who has bothered you before. Someone who had bothered me before. I paused. Could it be Lincoln? After all, he was the only one who had troubled me. I remember clearly, given Lincoln's hatred for me, once he had the capability to retaliate, he would undoubtedly act without reservation, and with so many helpers. Thinking of this, I shuddered. Lincoln knew where I lived. This time, he and his accomplices were stopped by Nolan and his men. But what about next time? I clenched the mace in my hand and made a quick decision. Since I could no longer rely on myself alone to escape this predicament, Nolan was undoubtedly a good ally to consider. Wait a moment, I have a first aid kit here. Nolan and his group lived on the top floor. As soon as I entered, I was momentarily dazzled by the greenery, lettuce, bok choy, spinach. The large balcony was covered in vines and plants. Nolan was reclining on the couch, shirtless, his lips devoid of any color, seeing the wound that snaked from his shoulder down into his lower back. My heart shook violently. It wasn't out of sympathy. The wound was just too frightening. The skin around the cut was inflamed, the flesh on either side turned outward, and the bone was faintly visible. My hands trembled, and I thrust the medical kit into Peter's arms. Quick, go treat his wound. Nolan barely lifted his eyelids in response, but as soon as Peter touched his back, Nolan sucked in a breath of air as if in pain. Oscar, unable to stand by, pushed Peter aside. Look at your clumsy hands. Let me do it. However, after he took over, the expression on Nolan's face grew even more pained. After several people tried and seemed to realize something else was needed, the medical kit quickly returned to my hands. Oscar smiled apologetically. Miss Phoebe, we are all men here, clumsy at administering medicine. Could you please help our boss with his wounds? Me? I was about to say I had no experience when I was already being pushed to sit behind Nolan on the couch, with no way out. I followed the instructions and redressed the wound. Fortunately, this time Nolan was more cooperative and didn't show any painful expressions. As dawn broke, I was about to discuss potential collaboration with Nolan when suddenly I heard the walkie-talkie on the coffee table crackle a few times. Then, an excited voice came through. "Boss, rescue has arrived. The rescue team has entered the complex." I was overjoyed and quickly ran to the window, only to see that the window on the 16th floor was already crowded with survivors. Everyone was desperate to escape. Before the rescue boat even approached, people from the 16th floor were jumping into it like dumplings. "The boat's going to capsize," a faint voice said, and I turned around to see Nolan had already put on a shirt. Sure enough, just seconds after Nolan spoke, the rescue boat capsized, throwing the rescuers and survivors into the water. A few minutes later, the walkie-talkie crackled again. "Boss, it seems the rescue team is specifically asking about Miss Phoebe. He says Miss Phoebe is his daughter. Should we tell him the truth?" In an instant, I thought through many possibilities, but I never imagined that my father would join a rescue team from thousands of miles away because he was worried about my safety, all to find me sooner. "Dad," I looked at the man with the disheveled beard in front of me, my eyes welling up. No wonder every time I called, there was always the sound of drizzling rain on the other end. Turns out, he had left home long ago to join the rescue team alone. My father rubbed my head and pulled out a familiar pendant from his pocket. This belongs to Quinn," I said, eyes wide in disbelief as I took the pendant. "Quinn is fine now. She has moved to a safe place along with other disaster-stricken residents. She specifically asked me to tell you this because she was worried about you." Having family by my side, my previously frantic heart settled down in an instant. My dad also brought news from outside. According to the Meteorological Bureau, the rate of the water level rise has started to slow down. However, 90% of the world's land area has been submerged under dozens of meters of floodwater, and it will take some time for the waters to recede. In this global flood, only the high mountains located in the northwest part of the country remained unaffected. The government has established a temporary base there and has dispatched countless fishing boats to rescue and bring survivors to the base. "Dad, did you just say that a fishing boat will come to take us to the base early tomorrow morning?" "Yes," my dad nodded, his voice betraying his relief. "When we get home, let your mom cook you something delicious." Looking at the floodwater that had reached the 16th floor, my eyes gleamed with joy. Since the day of the catastrophic rain, a force called hope had finally begun to grow in my heart. 34. That evening, seeing the storeroom filled with supplies, my dad couldn't help but give me a thumbs up. "Impressive, worthy of being my daughter." I smiled and generously asked, "Dad, what would you like to eat?" "Hot pot." "Okay, definitely, hot pot base, preserved meat, canned luncheon meat, canned ham, vermicelli, instant noodles, and the lettuce and water spinach I took from Nolan's house." The spicy aroma quickly filled the living room. So far, the rain had continued for 26 days. My dad had participated in the rescue efforts for 20 days, every day, living on the boat. Even a warm meal was a luxury, but the thought of his daughter being among the countless affected people kept him from resting. Fortunately, everything had a good ending. That night, Nolan gathered all the residents of the building from the 20th to the 23rd floor. In his words, Lincoln and his group had killed many residents of the community, and even if they were taken back to the base, their fate would not be good. "The fishing boat will arrive early tomorrow." Tonight was their last chance to erase all evidence. If all the residents of our building disappeared, no one would know of their misdeeds. Thinking of the possible battle tonight, I made a makeshift mace and each of us carried one. Seeing our equipment, other residents quickly followed suit: baseball bats, golf clubs, machetes, hoes, sickles, wooden pickaxes. Every person was armed with a weapon. Lincoln and his group might have slaughtered several buildings of people, but now that others knew to band together and resist, how much chance did they stand? As time ticked by, someone couldn't help but yawn. I glanced at my phone. It was past 1 in the morning. It was the time when the human body is most tired. If Lincoln and his group appeared now, catching us off guard would be dangerous. I took out 2 boxes of instant noodles. Nolan had someone cook them on the spot. Dozens of noodle cakes were boiled, and soon the hallway was filled with their aroma. Everyone had been hungry for several days, and with such a stimulus, who could still sleep after eating and drinking? Everyone's spirits were much lifted. Nolan personally led people to guard the stairwell. Several buckets of a secret weapon were placed at his feet. Next to them, several large pots were bubbling with steam. 36. Around 2 in the morning, finally, there was some noise from downstairs. Nolan waved his hand, and the residents in charge of boiling water quickly extinguished the fire. A dozen people lined up, each holding a pot of just boiled water, in the darkness. Nolan's eyes intently watched the lower floors. Seconds turned into minutes, and the footsteps grew closer. Just as the attackers were about to reach the 20th floor, Nolan shouted, "Now!" At his command, everyone immediately threw their buckets downward. Bang, bang, bang. Piercing screams soon came from below. The scalding hot water, at nearly 90 degrees Celsius, was unbearable for humans. The painful cries from below lasted for several minutes, but would the attackers give up so easily? Apparently not. Half an hour later, those people appeared again at the stairway corner. This time, however, they had wooden boards with them. Using the boards as shields, they steadily advanced forward. Nolan had anticipated this and waved his hand, prompting several young people to throw down a refrigerator straight down the stairs. Flower pots, ovens, water heaters, washing machines, microwaves. Anything throwable was used without hesitation. A mere wooden board might stop hot water. But when faced with heavy objects like fridges and washing machines, it instead became an obstacle to their escape. The screams from below grew even more harrowing. Nolan spoke calmly, "Prepare for the final strike." At his command, everyone hastily kicked the buckets at their feet. Before the invaders could even run, they were doused head to toe with a yellow liquid. I instinctively covered my nose. The buckets contained none other than the collected urine and feces of the building's residents. Thinking of Lincoln and his group covered in filth brought me immense relief. This time, until dawn broke, the invaders did not reappear. As the faint morning light emerged, someone shouted, "The boat! The nation has sent a boat to pick us up." At the horizon where water met sky, a boat slowly approached. Some had tears in their eyes, others embraced and wept. This fishing boat was large enough to accommodate the entire community. But in the end, only the residents of our building boarded the boat. The other apartment buildings had been ravaged by Lincoln and his group. They didn't leave a single survivor. As for Lincoln, the moment the ferry started, I vaguely spotted their group's figures at the apartment building ahead. They were well aware of their crimes. Even if they had gone to the temporary base, their lives wouldn't be spared. So they simply chose to stay behind and continue to face this endless flood. I turned around, leaving the entire neighborhood behind me. Nolan waved at me and handed me a small box. "Here, for the medicine." It turned out to be a box full of gold bars. Oscar teased cheekily beside me, "Miss Phoebe, our boss has really given you all his fortunes." Holding the box of gold bars, I had only one thought: a box full of gold really is quite heavy.